Good afternoon, everyone. A little less than 2 years ago, I had the great pleasure of meeting Madame Rajavi, her support staff in Paris, and many of you, many supporters of the MEK in Geneva, in Paris, in Washington, in New York, in Los Angeles, and I became a member of the unofficial group called the American Friends of the MEK. And you've heard today from Ambassador Bolton, who does a great job, former Congressman Kennedy, but we also have people that I know you'll recognize: Mayor Rudy Giuliani, the mayor of New York; Louis Freeh, a former director of the FBI; Michael Mukasey, a judge and a former Attorney General of the United States. My predecessor as governor, Tom Ridge, who went on to be the first Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security after 9/11. Howard Dean, the former governor of Vermont and presidential candidate. And many, many others, too numerous to name, including 4 generals who served in Iraq and got to know the MEK and the residents of Ashraf very well, and I'll talk about them in a second. And this has been a wonderful part of my life, because I met a group of warm, caring, freedom-loving individuals who wanted the best, not for themselves, but for other people, their countrymen, their comrades, and for the cause of liberty, justice, and democracy all over the world. I've thoroughly enjoyed this association. And when we first met, Madame Rajavi told me we had 2 goals. One was to help convince the State Department of the United States of America to delist the MEK as a terrorist organization. And the second goal was to help make sure that the residents of Ashraf were safe and secure. And we promised Madame Rajavi that we would give our best efforts towards both goals. And let me talk about the success first. We did have success in winning the war to get delisting. The success came when myself and a few others persuaded Madame Rajavi to go back into court and essentially sue the State Department again and say, you've been sitting on this for several years, it's time to act. And we won that battle. I said we were successful on delisting, and we were. Well, we have failed, Madame Rajavi, and most importantly, the friends of the American Friends of the MEK, we have failed the residents of Ashraf and the residents of Liberty, because we were lied to by Mr. Kobler, we were misled by our own government, and we fell for it. We helped persuade Madame Rajavi to persuade the leadership at Ashraf to begin the resettlement process. Time and time again, when that process bogged down, we, the American Friends of the MEK, got back on the phone with Madame Rajavi and her staff and said, we've got to keep this going. It's the only hope for true resettlement. Well, we were lied to, but we were naive. There was never any caring about protecting the residents at Liberty. Remember, the whole condition precedent for going to Liberty was it was going to be safer at Liberty. It wasn't isolated. It was in the, near Baghdad. It was going to be safer. Well, it hasn't proved to be a whit safer. It's also a hellhole. Every promise that was made about the conditions at Liberty, about what's in the MOU, what the residents of Ashraf could bring with them, almost every promise has been violated. And we fought hard to get individual promises lived up to by the government of Iraq. But we were complicit in telling these people that they should move and they would be more secure. Now, I said I would talk about my government, the United States, last. We have a special responsibility because in 2003, representatives of the United States government and the United States military persuaded the residents of Ashraf to disarm. And in return for disarming, and they were well armed and well able to protect themselves. In return for disarming, we gave each and every one of those residents a signed piece of paper saying that they would be protected by the United States of America, that their safety and security would be protected by the United States of America. And how has the United States done since then? Well, by the way, that there are 4 generals, 1 colonel and 3 generals, who got to know the MEK residents of Ashraf very, very well, who are now friends, part of the American Friends of the MEK, who are working to achieve the goals that I've talked about. They are Colonel Wesley Martin, who was in charge of protection of Camp Ashraf for a while, General Phillips, also in charge of the protection of Ashraf, General Conway, now one of the commandants of the Marine Corps, and General Hugh Shelton, who was the chief of the United States Army, all of whom served in Iraq, all of whom got to know the MEK, all of whom have been at conferences, have spoken out publicly on behalf of this cause, because they got to know the people of Ashraf best. Now, but how's the official response of the U.S. government been? In 2009, when the first attack by Iraqi federal police using U.S. weapons, the first attack on Ashraf took place, the State Department issued a strong statement of condemnation, and nothing changed. In 2011, American troops were nearby Ashraf. They got notice in advance that this attack was taking place, and instead of moving forward to stop the attack, they were withdrawn and told to fall back and move away from Ashraf. And after the slaughter in 2011, in April 2011, what did the United States State Department do? It issued a strong statement of condemnation, and nothing changed. And then this past February 9th, the State Department, after the attack and the death of 7 more residents, issued another strong statement of condemnation. But worse, when we were trying to persuade the residents of Ashraf to leave and go to liberty, the United States government issued, and I want to read this verbatim, issued the following statement: if the residents of Ashraf moved to liberty, the United States government would commit to support their safety and the safety and security of the residents in liberty. Now, can somebody tell me, anybody in this room, tell me what the United States government did to ensure the safety and security of the residents in liberty? What did we do to protect those 7 people? Madam Rajavi, do you know anything the United States government did to protect us at liberty? I don't think you do, because I don't, and I guess Ambassador Bolton doesn't, and Congressman Kennedy doesn't. But in August 29th, after we had persuaded some of the residents to leave, in August of 29th of last year, our government issued another statement. It said the U.S. also reiterates its commitment to support the safety and security of the residents throughout the process of their relocation outside of Iraq. So 2 statements saying that we were absolutely committing to support the safety and security. We didn't, we haven't, we should be ashamed. Now, you've heard other speakers and Madam Rajavi talk about the options that are here. And there are basically 4 options left in the path before us. One is somehow to strengthen the security and safety at liberty. That's impossible. It's too small, it's too crowded, the buildings are not bomb resistant or mortar resistant. Frankly, a shotgun blast could tear through those buildings. And the government of Iraq has even admitted that it cannot ensure the safety of the residents of liberty. The second option would be to expedite the resettlement process. But even if a miracle occurred and the nations of the world were so moved by my speech that 11 of them stood up and said, we'll take 300 each, that process would take at least a year to complete. That's probably optimistic, but at least a year if they were all moved to do the right thing. So that option is not very viable. It's not viable to the 3,200 people who remain and whose security is the first order of concern for all of us here. The third option is to move back to Ashraf. And surely the residents would be more secure in Ashraf. No question about that. For all of the reasons that were stated, for the reasons that were shown on the videotape, more secure at Ashraf. And there's a fourth option, and it is an option, that I have sent to Senator Kerry and to his staff, and that is for the United States to step up and honor its moral, and I believe its legal commitment that was given individually to each one of those residents. And I believe the United States should, as swiftly as possible, airlift all of these asylum seekers back to the United States, where they could be temporary asylum seekers. We could easily accommodate these folks on one base. They could be together, and the resettlement process could occur under the safety of the auspices of the United States government on a United States military base. And someone said to me when I suggested that, well, that's extraordinary, it will never happen. Well, it's not extraordinary. The American people, the American government said so in a contract in 2003 and in statements time after time after time where we committed to guarantee the safety and security of those people. How many more have to die? How many more have to be injured before we stand up and do the right thing? I think a country that calls itself the beacon for freedom and democracy and human rights all across the world has an obligation to do so. And it's time that the nations of the world act to right wrongs. And I want us to right wrongs all over the globe. I want us to right wrongs in Darfur and other places in the globe. But right now, the threat to life is no more severe, no more imminent than at liberty. And it is time for the nations of the world, the United Nations, the United States government, to stop talking, start acting.